Hello, everybody, and how are you doing today? It seems by the comments that some of you are not grasping hold of the whole primer pocket uniforming and primer seating depth operations. Well, I am here to help, and this time I am going to go over every single reason why this is sometimes hard to understand. There is going to be some old video clips and some new video clips. There are a lot of variables involved. So I am going to get the whiteboard out and graphically show everything, starting from the case to the primer pocket to the primer dimensions and how all these relate to each other. And most importantly, how we need to nullify the effects of case rim thickness with my brackets for the Primo-Rite CPS and the Duraco PCPS primer tools. All right, let's dive into this deeply so hopefully we can dispel the mystery. Okay, folks, here we are. We're going to go over this, and I'm going to try to make it as clear as possible. So let's start with the primer thickness or the height of your primer. Now, the primers I'm using now are the CCI BR4s. I may go back to the Federals, I don't know, but I was out of Federals and I had these. Now, all these measurements you're going to see today were done with me starting to use the Alpha Munitions brass. This is the 6BR case, that's what I use. So if you want to see about how I measured these and where these numbers come from, you can watch the video that I made on Alpha Munitions brass, measuring it up or something like that. You'll find it in my playlists. So here's our primer. Okay, this is more a little rounded here at the bottom of the cup, you know that. And these are the anvils sticking up on top. Now, I measured 100 of them. And my measurements were between .1186 and .1208. So that right there gives you a difference of .0022, which is 2.2 thousandths of an inch. And let me tell you, these CCR BR4s are one of the most carefully made and tolerated primers there are, and there's still that much difference between the primer height. Okay, so this is a very important thing to take into consideration. So this is your primer thickness or height, whatever you want to call it. Now we're going to get over to your case primer pocket depth, which of course this goes in here. So I kind of made this case a little better. This is your primer pocket. Now again, 100 were measured. And we range anywhere from .1215 to .1230. All right, so that gives us a difference of .0015, which is 1.5 thousandths of an inch. So over here, you've got 2.2 thousandths of an inch. Over here, you've got 1.5 thousandths of an inch. So what I'm trying to point out is how none of these components are ever the same, okay? So you need to know these numbers in order to take them all into consideration and then figure out what your primer seating depth is, what you want. And even at that, the priming tool is not going to set them all at that depth. That's why at the end, I will show you more about the brackets I made for the primer tools to get them as close as physically possible to the same depth. All right, now stay tuned, and I'm going to make up another whiteboard here where we will go over rim thickness and shell holders and how they index off of the top of the case rim. And this is different all the time, the thickness of your case rim also. So stay tuned and I'll get that board drawn up and we'll go over that. Okay, now we're going to get to this next part about case rim thickness and shell holders in relation to the case rim. So here's your case rim at the bottom of your case, okay? And your primer pocket, as we showed, is there. So I measured 100 of them, and this is all this alpha brass. And we had 0.0500 to 0.0516 with a difference of 0.0016. Okay, so now we're throwing in another thousandth 0.6, we'll say a thousandth of a half, a thousandth and a half difference there, throwing in back to the other measurements that we did earlier. Now here's what happened. Here is your shell holder. The black lines on the outside, that's your shell holder. And these are the little hooks that grab your case rim, keep it from, going out. It's kind of a rude drawing, but it's the best I could make it. And this here, where your case rim makes contact with this shell holder, this is the point of index, what it is indexing off. It is not indexing off the base down here. Okay, the face of your case. It is not basing off of that. It is basing off of the top of the case rim, not the bottom. This is where our problem starts. This has been a forever problem with reloading. Case rim thickness, because they are just not the same. As you can see, we can have up to 1,000 and a half. And this is good alpha brass too. So depending on your brass, we could be way over that. But we're not even going to go there now. We're just explaining what happens. So again, we have your case and your case rim in your priming tool. Here's your primer pocket. Now these red dots indicate your primer. And this is the priming tool push rod that pushes your primer up into the primer pocket. So if this was pushed in all the way, since it's indexing off of the top of the case rim, you're going to have different numbers here because this case rim is not the same thickness. Now say if we took out, let me see if I can do this. Yeah, if we took out this line, I hope I'm not screwing that. And we took out that line, and now this is the bottom of your case rim. You can see how we would have a difference if this imaginary line was still here. Okay? So our primer is either going to be measured off of here or off of this one, how deep it is in the pocket. You can see where that difference is going to come in every single time, depending on your case rim thickness. This may sound confusing, but it's not. It's because this is a different thickness. This is either going to stick out or in more, because it's indexing off of here, the top of the case rim. So that's the problem that has been plaguing reloaders forever. I hope everybody understands this. Go over it and over it until you do, because you need to understand this and the previous clip to understand now how these primer brackets are going to work. All right? Now, your shell holder is going to have some slop in it. When you put the case rim in there, there's going to be slop. You're going to be able to pick up and down on that primer just a little bit, a few thousandths or whatever, because it has to be big enough to get all the case rims in there, because they know, the manufacturers, that the case rims are not the same thickness. If they were all, say, 0.0500, they would make this 0.0500, and we'd never have that case rim thickness problem again. But that isn't the case. This is different all the time. So that's why they leave slop in there, so you can get different cases that have different case rim thicknesses in there. All right, do we understand? So, I have come quite close to making this, to solving this, but I just cannot solve it exactly. Now, if you went with all this stuff, and I'll show you the numbers in the next slide, with all this stuff put together, and you did nothing, and you just used a primer tool, without the bracket or anything, I can guarantee you, let me jump over here so I can write better, that your seating depths are going to be anywhere from 0 to 0.003 thousandths of an inch difference. I've had even more, depending on how bad the cases are. Okay? So what good is 3 thousandths going to do you if you just go ahead and do everything as normal as, using the tools without any bracket to keep your case rim pressed down on the bottom of the shell holder, which keeps it from lifting up and indexing off of the top of that case rim. That's what this is all about. So now some of these could be 3 thousandths under. Some could be 3 thousandths plus, sticking out. So that's a major problem, and will absolutely show up on your target, your point of impact. So let's move on now, and I will show you how these brackets work. Let me show you what these short action custom headspace comparators and inserts are first. I'll take it off of here. This is the headspace comparator. And the inserts just snap in. This is what you're going to need. One of these. This is probably showing up dark, but I can't get any light on it. You're going to need one of these in order to go along with these brackets that I've shown you that. In this drawing, of course, the case is a little stubby now because I needed room to draw up here. So this is your case rim now. Okay? And this here in the red dotted line is that headspace comparator insert I was telling you about. When you put your case in either the Duraco PCPS primer tool or the Primal Rights CPS primer tool, this goes over the top, and the brackets that I made, you can't see the rest of it here, but you can see them online or in other videos. This bracket bar holds down and pushes down on this headspace insert, which forces your case down to the bottom of the shell holder. Not up here, not up here, but to the bottom. That totally eliminates the case rim thickness problem. So imagine, you can try to do this by hand, but I'll tell you something, I found this out. When you're pushing a primer into a case, into the primer pocket, it's going to lift that case up no matter how hard you try to hold on to it. It's lifting it up. Unless you have the loosest primer pockets in the world, which you might as well just throw that brass away. It's dangerous for one. But this bar that goes across, there's threaded rods down here, and of course your tool's under here. It pushes down on the case and flattens it and holds it on the bottom of the shell holder. As you see, there's no gap in there now. That's what it does. And if you use it the way it's set up properly in that, you will have no effect on headspace. It will not shorten your headspace. You're not pushing down that hard. This tool you'll have to get on your own. The headspace insert, I do not sell them. You have to get them from Short Action Customs. Make sure you order the right caliber and the right shoulder angle, because some of these could be 6mm with a different shoulder angle, or 7mm or whatever, but a different shoulder angle. So you got to make sure you order the right one. He'll get them out to you within a week, 2 weeks at the most. If they're out of them, it's a popular caliper, I don't know. Now, as far as the brackets, I think I have 5 of the ones for the Duraco PCPS and 1 or 2 of them for the CPS. Now, for any of you guys that haven't seen this, any of these videos, my priming tool was the Primal Rights CPS, all right, which worked great, but for some reason mine just continuously got worse. And then I figured out one of the main things is the CPS has got a handle on it where you pull down, okay, to activate the push rod. And I noticed it has a lot to do with how you pull down. If you pull down real slow and tight at the bottom, if you just whack it down, if you go fast, this makes a difference. One of the things I don't like about it, it's a great primer, but it's also $680. I no longer have that. I have since sold it. Once I got that Duraco PCPS primer, which is also called the ugly man's primer, the poor man's primer, or something like that. That is a very nicely built and designed primer, and you can use it on a regular single stage press. I suppose you could use it on a multi-stage press too, I'm not sure. But I get much, much better and much, much more consistent results with the Duraco PCPS. Now, I am not trying to badmouth Primo-Rites and their CPS primer at all. Mine could be worn out. You know, I've had it for years, so, but still a $680 tool should not just wear out. I think there's a problem with stacking tolerances or something. I'm not sure. I'm not a machinist, but it's gone. And I'm with the Duraco PCPS primer now. It works better. It comes from Australia, and I think in American dollars it's like $160. And then I would highly suggest getting one of their case holders too, because they're made better than the run-of-the-mill spit out 1,000 a day case holders. So I would highly suggest getting one of theirs. So that would cost you, I don't know, $200 or something like that. And then getting a Short Action Customs insert, I don't know, that might be $30, $40 with shipping. Less than half of the cost of the CPS primer. So that is my take on all of this. Now, my brackets for the CPS primer and for the Duraco PCPS primer, they're both on my website, hitthexreloads.com, and you go under the Buy Memberships tab and you can purchase it there. And I'll get it out to you as soon as possible. If I have them in stock, I ship them out the same day. If not, I have to make more, which takes me about a week to make a batch of them. Okay, so after all that, I know the brain cells may feel a little tickled now because I know mine do. So you're wondering, all right, why are we doing all this? Well, here is the reason. First of all, when you're uniforming your primer pockets to the same depth every time, you're 10 steps ahead of the game already. Then, when you measure your primers, and you don't have to measure 100 of them, measure at least 10 of them, 10 to 20 of them. Write down the shortest and the longest. So once we know our primer thickness, we can then use the formula, which I'm going to show in the next slide, of how deep we want to seat these. Now, of course, the primers that are shorter and the primers that are longer, are going to push in more and seat the anvils down a little deeper, which is no biggie. Don't worry about that. So next, I'm going to show you the formula, and see how all this comes together. So here is the formula. We want to read up here. To figure primer seating depth, find the primer pocket depth after uniforming. Okay, so these are some numbers, old numbers I have in here. So say my primer pocket depth, I know that is 1240. Now, what was my shortest primer out of those? Not the longest one, we want the shortest one. So let's say it was 0.1180. Okay, that's going to give us a depth of 6,000, and that is just touching the bottom of the primer pocket. The anvils are just touching. So we don't want them just touching. Okay? You can see now, subtract line 1 from 2, and that's what gives us the 6,000ths. Now take that answer and add another 2,000ths, which I've got this all set up in this number spreadsheet to do it automatically. So seat primer at minus 8,000. So we're going to set our depth to 0.008. That's where we want to seat them. This ensures that all the anvils are touching and they are flat, and then we have the same seating depth. Let's take another example. Say we're at 0.1230 is our primer pocket depth. All right, and now we still have 0.1180. So that's given us 5,000ths seating depth, just touching. The anvils are just touching. We don't know if one of them is, two of them are, all three of them are, or we don't know. So that's why we add another 2,000ths, and that gives us 7,000ths. So that's what we're going to seat them at. Pretty simple, pretty simple. Write this down here, this part up here in red, unless you want to make your own spreadsheet the way I did, but it's very simple, basic math, and we should be able to figure that out. Okay, so that's the formula. All right, here's some food for thought questions. Well, basically one question and an answer. Without using the brackets, what then are you going to do with the out-of-spec cases once you load them up? You know, the ones with different primer seating depths. What are you going to do with them then? Well, here's a thought. You could use them for blow-offs, you know, just to foul your barrel, 4 or 5 blow-offs to get your barrel ready. You might want to use them as ciders, but why would you want to, you know, use them for ciders when they are out of spec? They're not going to be hitting the point of impact the same. In my opinion, you should have all bullets exactly the same. Unless, you know, they're different loads and bullet or primer seating depth bullets for testing purposes, fine, you'll need to do that. But now D, by having all bullets the same, you will be able to get important feedback as to their point of impact, whether they are blow-offs or ciders. So the bottom line, in my opinion, is why have any that are different anyways? Again, unless they are different loads and bullet or primer seating depth bullets for testing purposes. So I ask you to mull this over and see if this doesn't make sense to you. You know, you're going out to the range, you got a box of bullets, and your primer sheeting depths are all different. So how are you going to tell which ones are behaving right and which ones aren't? All right. Thank you for watching. I'm hoping this is the last video I'll have to make on this. And don't forget, there's the comment section below where you can ask questions and share things amongst yourselves, or you can go directly to my website, hitthexreloads.com, and go to my contact tab and contact me directly. Alrighty, thanks for watching and have a good one. If you like this video, please smash the subscribe, like, and bell for all notifications. And you can hit this QO code there, or here, wherever I put it, and that'll take you to the website where there's a wealth of information.